Yeah. Okay, so we are up to we're up to Kol Da'alim Gvar. We are approaching the end of it. Whoever is stronger wins. Now, it's right. So just remind me, I think we got up to I think we got up to the top of the next. I think we got up to the top of the Lamed base. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, we did. Yes. Basically, to summarize, Rav Nachman Paskins Kol Da'alim Gvar. That means there are certain situations where Beistin can't solve what to do. There is a machlokus. This one says it's my ancestors. This one says it's my ancestors. And Nachman says Kol Da'alim Gvar. We got it. Whoever stronger wins. And the Gemora basically then tries to tease out when exactly this applies. What are the parameters? Right. The first thing the Gemara deals with is there were other options. Why don't we take the other options? We could say Yachloku, we could say Shudu the Daini, whatever the Dayanim did is appropriate. Why do we go in the way of whoever's stronger wins? And that the Gemara says the difference is very simple. In a situation where it is possible to have a resolution, Adam might come along and say, actually it belongs to this guy or that guy, right? Then Beistin don't want to do they don't want to rule in a definitive way. That's what Rashbam understands. Remember, Rashbam says it's a siluk din. It's just basically a step back, can't get involved, fight out between you. In other words, we're not getting involved until Adam come and there's something to talk about, then come back to us, then make another appointment, right? That's basically how it works. They're only going to do that when it's possible for a resolution. If it's impossible for resolution, like the case of the two Toras, the two documents which come on the same day, right? It's not possible. It's not solvable because halachically, even if you prove one was before the other, it makes no difference. They both can come to effect at the end of the day. And therefore, we've got to solve it in a different way. And that's when we go down the route of the Yachloku or Shud or the Daini, wherever they're going for. That was the first point. The second point is, we asked, why is it that Rav Nachman Paskins here, Kol Da'alim Gvar, and in the case of Machlef Parah B'Chamor, that is a case where basically you have a virtual acquisition takes place through Chalipin. I do a kinyan on something on this animal, and the other animal immediately goes to you at that split second, and the animal gave birth, or it was a shifcha, a maid servant, and she gave birth, and we don't know who the child belongs to, whatever. So we say Yachloku, we split it. Why do we say? According to what the rules we just said, why should we split it? It's perfectly verifiable. You can solve it. If Adam come along and testify that the calf was born at this moment, you can work out, right, whether it was before or after the moment of kinyan, moment of acquisition. So why, according to the rules we said, you shouldn't say achloku. If the rule is that you only say that in any situation where it is possible to resolve it, right? Yeah, where it's possible to resolve it, that's when you say Kol Da'alim Gvar. We remove ourselves until there's a resolution, but we don't step in with a solution like a chloku. Why here do we? Understand, right? Why does Rav Nachman? What? It's a question on Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman Paskins Kol Da'alim Gvar. We said the Paskins Kol Da'alim Gvar in a scenario where it is resolvable in the future, therefore we can't resolve it. Now we take a step back. But this case is resolvable in the future, and we don't say Kol Da'alim Gvar, we say Achloku. And the answer is, according to the way Tosfos understands it, Rashbam doesn't really clarify this. It's not that Rashbam doesn't know like this. Tosfos spells it out. And Tosfos says, the Gemara answers that the difference is if there's what we call Drara D'Mamona, which means there was a monetary ownership. There is a monetary stake, if you like, for both of them. So that means I'm selling something to you. So it used to be mine, and it's now yours. So both of us, for sure, have an ownership of this item at some point. One before the other, right? The question is when the change in hands took place. I definitely used to own it, and you own it now, right? Because of that, Based in have a sofek, even if you said nothing, you didn't say anything. There was no claim, there was no taina, there was nothing. You said nothing. Like the calf is mine, didn't say anything. We would have a sofek which we have to resolve. We have a doubt as to who is the owner of the calf. And therefore, because of that, says Tosfos, that's why we can't step back. and say called the alim gvar, because if there is a drora d'mamon, if there is a monetary acquisition, a holding here, then and that means, and that creates itself a doubt for Beis Din, which we are forced to resolve, and therefore that's why we have to go down the route of paskening achloku, even though that's true, right? The witnesses might come later, Adim might come later and solve it, and we might be wrong and everything else. It doesn't matter. We have to have a resolution because it's a suffix that exists external to the claimants. The claimants themselves are not involved here. Yeah, they're separate to it. That's kind of draw. That's draw d'mamona. Whereas in the case of the fields, right? Hi. In the case of the fields, there's no. It could be for one of them. There's no ownership at all. Now, in the case of the fields, if we didn't say anything, if the people who came along didn't say anything, there's nothing to talk about. You understand? There's literally nothing to say because there's no. We don't have a suffix about this field. The field is very happy, right? We're not. No, the problem is created because of your claims. You're coming along and saying it's yours. You're coming and saying it's yours. So we're going to say, well, we've got no idea. It's likely AD might come along because there's no and there is no drora to momona. There's no definitive monetary interest that exists for both of you, because one of you may have no interest at all. One of you may be completely irrelevant. You understand, right? Because of that, we can just say, well, we remove ourselves. We don't have to get involved until such time as there is a proof.
What we did with the ship.
Pardon?
Which is what we did with the boat.
Which is what we did with the boat. Exactly. That is what we did with the boat. Yeah. So that was I seem to recall we're going to see. That's right. There's a. One second. So, someone mentioned this. Did you mention that Kol Damik appears at the beginning of the Masechta as well? Someone mentioned it last time. Oh, it was Ellie. I think it was Ellie. Right at the beginning. One second. Oh. If you turn back to Beis Madalef, don't get scared. Not all of you were in the Shira, but if you basically the Mishnah at the beginning, yeah, right? The Mishnah at the beginning of Hashutfin. Shirotzu Lasos Mechitza, they make the wall in the middle. And then the case in the Mishnah is where they build the wall. Says the Mishnah, first Mishnah Masechta, the Fichach, therefore, im nofal hakosel. If the wall falls down, what do? You assume the place and the stones are both of theirs. So you kind of like, it's basically a well, I suppose almost like a chaluk, right? It belongs to both of them. Yeah, you don't know exactly where the wall was or whatever it is. Yeah, that's how it is. Yeah, because they built it jointly originally. Therefore, when it falls down, it's also joint. Halfway through Tosis de Maschal Fichach. That's a really good way of referring to it, isn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 lines down inside the Dibra Maschal Fichach. Halfway, 2/3 of the way along the line. It's only one line I'm doing, don't worry. Says Tosfos. Can you see that? 8 lines into Tosfos, 2/3 of the way into the line. Why don't we say Kol Dalim Kvar? We have a suffix. The wall fell down. We don't know who owns the stones. We don't know exactly what the story is. Why don't we say Kol Dalim Kvar? Whoever stronger wins. Just like we say Zeh Mashal Avosai, our case, we say, right, Kol Dalim Kvar. Says Tosfos, Hosmu de Leka Drara D'Mamoina. There's no Drara D'Mamoina. Aval Hacha, Ika Drara D'Mamoina. Here there is a Drara D'Mamoina. Here there is a suffix to based in, even without their claims. There's a wall that's fallen down, right? Okay, so we don't. So they both have a claim in that wall. They both have a monetary holding in that wall, and as a result, we have to say basically a form of splitting it, right? Now the Rabbi Elchanan says in Kovach Shurim like this, and this is where we can try and hopefully get a bit of understanding. He says, Nira, it would seem, Bir HaChiluk, the explanation of this distinction of whether this idea of Drora D'Mamoina is as follows. To Hada Kol Da'alim Kvar, this concept of Kol Da'alim Kvar, which we've been discussing, whoever's stronger wins, whom it pnei, should based in Masalkin as we've said, based in remove themselves. They ain't poskin shumdin, they don't paskin anything. Again, going with Rashbam, we saw the Rosh learns it is a psak. The Rashbam says it's not, right? Umimela Kol Da'alim Kvar, and therefore, it's not that we're saying fight it out, we're just removing ourselves, and therefore that's just the effect is called Alim. And how, he says, can you possibly have this scenario, right? Okay? Even if there's a doubt over who owns something, there are halachas in the Torah how to paskin. There's always rules about how to paskin, how, should you own it? Should you own it? How do you have this case at all that we just remove ourselves? What do you want to say? Jews are very talkative. How can we not paskin anything? What? So he says, Avomotzinu gambi isurin. You do find with isurin, shift away from choshen mishpat, like mominus and questions of ownership and monetary law, to isurin, things that are also mitzad halacha, think chometz, think kashrus, whatever, right? In those areas, there is a chiluk bein sofik lechisaron yediyah. There is a distinction between a doubt and a chisaron yediyah, lacking knowledge, missing some knowledge. Dezer lo nikra sofik. Lacking knowledge about something is not called a sofik. Is not called a doubt. If I don't know something, if I'm not aware of something, that's not called a doubt. That doesn't create a real sofik. I just don't have the knowledge. If I had the knowledge, I'd be able to solve it. V'chein gabi momon, he says, and that's how it works with momon as well. V'chein gabi momon. If there is a dror d'momon as a monetary interest, zehu momon amutul b'sofik. That's a sofik. V'dino she'ach loku. This thing, this wall, this or to take our case, this calf, right, is in a situation of sofik, of doubt, and therefore v'dino she'ach loku. That's why you split it. If there's no monetary, direct monetary interest, that's not a doubt. All that is just a lack of knowledge. It's not really a doubt. We just don't know. We don't have the facts. I don't know. We, based in, do not have the facts as to whether the calf is yours or yours, right? We just don't have those facts at our disposal. And when it's not a doubt, it is just a lack of knowledge. Ain't based in poskin shumdin klal. Based in don't have paskin anything. And therefore, wherever the money is, that's where it stays. You can fight out between you. Wherever it goes, that's just where it stays. So he makes a very fascinating distinction here, right? He says, let me just explain it. He says there is a very important distinction. He's learning it sort of as a transference from the idea of transferal from from other areas of halacha, like issa v'heta, like where you've got to establish: am I missing a fact? Is it just that I don't have enough facts at my disposal, or is this a genuine doubt? I'm just trying to think of an example. Romy, you could probably help me with this. In the world, no, I'm trying to think of that. You can have a sofik in kashrus. Let's think about kashrus for a second, right? You can have a sofik, or you can have a lack of knowledge. Like, did the spoon, did the milky spoon, fall into the meaty soup, right? I don't have the knowledge. If I have the knowledge at my disposal, right? Then I will have. Okay, but I don't know if that works. I'm trying to work out if that's a suffix or a chasaron idea. Brachas was the other one I was thinking about. There's a thing of halacha about brachas.
There's a whole big debate about it.
Yeah.
And at one point they didn't know.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
found out that they had a lack of knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah.
How they grow.
Yeah. No, but the one. Well, what I was thinking. So what I was thinking about with brachas is like this. Let's say you haven't learned your hilchos brachas properly. Okay.
Yeah.
And you don't know what bracha to make on a pineapple.
Okay.
Can you make shahakal?
Yeah.
No, because you have to verify it. You have to verify the halacha. It's not good enough to say, "Oh well, I don't know, I'm not sure, so I'll make shahakal." Now you could ask if it's not verifiable. Maybe then it might be different. But the point is it's not a suffix. A lack of knowledge is not a suffix. There isn't a suffix on what bracha to make on a pineapple. You're just an ignoramus. Do you understand? So you can't like say, "Well, I'm ignorant." No, I don't mean I'm not being. No, but so you got to find out. Ask a shaila or look it up or verify it. It's a chesaron yediyah. It's not a suffix.
Isn't every suffix like it's not just perfect knowledge that
No, but that's what I'm saying. That's the difference. A suffix is where, like my father said, if there was a certain item, right, where we could not verify the bracha, as a suffix in din, like we do not know what the bracha is. We don't know. It's not verifiable. We don't know. There's a machlokes in halacha. There are psukim which exists for suffix, right? This is a suffix. This is a doubt. We do not know what to do. I've got a good example. Another, what we deal with all the time now is surrogacy. Sorry, that's a bit of an extreme example, right? We have a suffix in halacha as to what defines your Jewish identity. Is it the genetics or is it the birth mother, right? This is a suffix. It's not resolvable. Shlomo Zalman apparently said, I read this somewhere recently. Shlomo Zalman said it's one of the very, very few cases he was ever encountered where there is no precedent. Yeah, there are various ideas and proofs brought from various places. I don't know if you heard Rabbi Aaron Steinberg, he gave a shir here, Motzei Shabbos. Yes, he went through all of this. There are various suggestions, but the bottom line is we do not know. There isn't a precedent for it. It's a new thing, right? So it remains a suffix, even though we do tilt more to the side of the genetics. Most posts can go more on that side, but the fact is it's a suffix indeed. That's a suffix. We don't have a way of verifying or of resolving that. It's not a lack of knowledge, it's a doubt. It's a legal doubt, but it's a real doubt.
it's like ignorance of the law is kind of ignorance of the law.
But here he's saying that here you can have something which is just because you don't have enough knowledge.
Yes.
And if you did have enough knowledge, right, it wouldn't be a doubt.
Which when it
It's not
comes
resolved. Suffix is not resolved.
which when it
A
comes to
suffix is not resolvable. A suffix is not resolvable.
and when it comes to the ownership of something, it
Yeah,
can't just be you're ignorant.
that's the point.
Yeah.
Well, there are two types of doubts over a monetary dispute. You can have a doubt over a monetary dispute, like the case of the two Toras, right, which is not resolvable, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have that, and you can have a case of. The problem is not just that it's not resolvable. That's not the point. The point was not going down the non-resolvable, but both of them potentially resolvable. But the distinction is, what is it? Is it a suffix or is it chesaron yediyah? Is it a doubt or is it a lack of knowledge? If it's a doubt, a genuine doubt, right? Then, like the wall falls down. I don't know who is the what's it called? Who is the owner of the wall? And therefore, the din is we have to split it, right? But if it's a case where there is no what we call drora de momoya, that means to say there's no definitive monetary claim in this item by both parties. We define that not as a suffix, but just as a chesaron yediyah, just as a lacking knowledge. We lack a fact. We lack a fact. The fact that we lack, the factual knowledge that we lack, right, is we are not aware whether or not this item or this ship or this piece of land is yours or yours. Okay, that's called lacking knowledge. That's not called a suffix. A suffix has to be external to Beis Din. That's the difference. Do you understand? It has to exist. It has to exist externally to the based in themselves. There has to be a suffix there in the world, a doubt. I have a wall, and that doubt is there, regardless of me, or of me who's trying to decide, or the basin trying to decide it. Yeah, it's a doubt that exists there. That doubt needs resolved. That's a suffix. Their basin have to get involved. Of course, they have to get involved. They have to paskin. They have to work out. Do we go after chazaka? Do we go after whatever? You solve it, or do a 50-50 split. But in a case where the doubt the doubt doesn't exist out there, the only doubt, if you like, is the fact that we're just not equipped with enough facts to know whether it belongs to Reuven or does it belong to Shimon. In that case, we can remove ourselves. We can misalik ourselves. Does that make sense? Does it sort of begin to make sense? It's a difficult piece. It is very nuanced. But that's what he says. Where there's no drawer mamona, it's not called a suffix, he says. It's just a chesaron yediyah. It's a lacking of knowledge. But the chesaron yediyah, based on don't paskin anything. They just say, leave it. Leave this well alone. Leave this well alone. Once we get the facts, we'll get involved. Once I know the facts, it'll be simple. I just don't know a fact. Like it's not like there's a thing to split here or anything else. It's just like, okay, it could be Reuven, it could be Shimon's. I don't know. Let's wait until the facts come in, and then we'll deal with it. You can see how there is less of a reason to get involved when it's just a case of missing a faction information, as opposed to where it's blatantly obvious, like there was a transfer of ownership and the calf was born at some point and we don't know when it was born. You can see the difference as to why there will be more of a need to get involved and not be able to take this sort of laissez-faire attitude, which is what was going on with Robin. Sorry, Jeremy had a question. Yeah.
I think my question was, do you think the time comes down to in the sense that it's somewhat you're not really
According to the Rashbam, a little bit. I hear that point. Maybe that's why the Rosh doesn't like it. Meaning the Rosh's problem, where the Rosh says it's a psak. The Rosh, according to Rashbam, Kol Dam Gvar is just an effect. It's an effect. We're not telling you to fight. We're just not dealing with it.
I'm just saying you're going through a whole process, a whole methodological process.
Yeah.
To get to a point where you're saying it's not really Kol Dam Gvar. What you're saying is we just don't know enough about it.
Yeah, that's true.
Then why could you just? I think the phrase. It's almost like the phrase is misleading. It's not Kol Dam Gvar. It's because we just don't know enough about it, and therefore, until we do, we can't get involved.
I would suggest it's a very fair point, and I would suggest that might be one reason why the Rosh doesn't like the Rashbam's pshat. The Rosh wants it to be a psak, and he says it's a one-off psak. That's what it is. This is a way of based in resolving a suffix, and the way they resolve the suffix is right in the ring, one round. That's it. Whoever wins wins once. Remember, that's what the Rosh says, right? Once. He's got a whole svara, because if it's really yours, you're going to fight stronger, and therefore you're going to take ownership. He's got a whole svara to it. All right. Yeah. Anyway, that's what he says. Let's see the Gemara. What? You know the story of Chaim, right?
Yes. Based on
Murdered in the night fort near Kovna by the Nazis. What was that?
He says, who said the Kol Dam is sorry, the Rosh.
Oh no, so the Rosh is the problem. Yes, we saw that. He asked a question on the Rosh. We saw the question. Yeah, I think we could try and learn the whole sugi again according to the Rosh. I'm hardly worried. But I don't know. It's a question. So they have to have another way of resolving it. Yeah. We've focused mainly Rosh. So top of the Omid on Lamed Hey on the base. Omri Nahardoi. So Nahardoi says as follows: Im ve'im bo echod min hashuk. And this is really the very last piece of the sugya. Very fascinating question. So we've got a situation of Kol Dalim Kvar. So based on removing themselves, go to the Rashbam, the Masalik themselves, we're not getting involved, sort it out between you. What happens if someone else comes and takes it? The land or the ship, someone else grabs it. So Nardoi is saying, if someone from the market, from outside, comes and takes it and is machzik in it, takes chazak, takes hold of it and grabs it and keeps it, or the land or whatever, you don't take it away from him.
Just based on force or based on a legal claim?
So Nahardoi say they understand that the basis for this is the statement of Rabbi Chia, the Tani Rabbi Chia, because Rabbi Chia taught Gazlin Shel Rabim lav shmei gazlan, which means that in a situation where, this is the way Nahardoi understand Rabbi Chia, it's going to be disputed, this is how they understand him, where you have someone who steals from two people who have a machlokus about something, so that's the rabbim, there's a rabbim, there's two people involved, they're both fighting over something, I say it's mine, he says it's his, and a gazlan comes, a third party snatches it, you don't take it away. He's not called a gazlan. Now, what does he mean not called a gazlan? I mean, it's a bit of a nasty thing to do, because no one says it's his, right? So the answer is, you can't force him to release what he's holding. Doesn't mean he's done a good thing. Doesn't mean he's allowed to do what he's done. But you don't force him to release it, even though he's not claiming it's his.
The only one you know is not his.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
You don't know who you should give it to.
But you don't know who to give it to.
You don't know.
Pardon?
You don't know who you can give it to.
Yeah.
It's the same property based in that.
No, you don't know who. What do you mean?
But you take it away from the others. The others.
You don't know.
That's probably where you can't take it away from.
So it's not so simple. Not so simple. Let's see the Rashbam and Tosfos. 1 second. And Rashbam says, anyway, that this is the first approach in Nahardoi. Okay. And Rav Ashi is going to dispute this. So let's leave Rav Ashi for a moment. Look at the top of the Rashi. Rashbam at the top of the Omid. In ba echad min hashuk v'echzik ba, someone from the marketplace comes and is machzik b'hach karka on this land. He takes hold of it. To Amar Rav Nachman, or he has forms a chazak on it. To Amar Rav Nachman, kol da'alim kvar. This land, which Rav Nachman said, kol da'alim kvar. Or boza shlishi. And this third party comes v'chotfa and snatches it me'ashnayim elu atonin shalavosai, from these two people who claim that it belongs to their ancestors, right? You don't take it out in Bastin from the hand of the third party. Even though he doesn't claim anything, doesn't say anything. He doesn't claim it's my ancestors. He just took it. Because maybe the other two also don't have a portion in it. Maybe they don't. Who says they do? Huh? What's that? That's right. That's right. So it's not mine either. It's a very Jewish thing, right? It's not his, maybe it's mine. So the Tony, that's what's kind of going on here, right? The Tony Rabbi Chia Gazlan Sharam V'Chalav Sovereign Ardoi, and Ardoi holds, says the Rashbam, the Gazlan Ki Chaim Myri. The Rabbi Chia, Ardoi held that the Gazlan, this is what he's talking about. The Gazlan Ki Chaim Myri. He's talking about this type of Gazlan. Shegazal Mishnai Machalukin B'Dover B'Dover. That he stole from two people who have a dispute over something. This one says it's mine, this one says it's mine. So in other words, where did Nahardoi get this from? The answer is they got it from their understanding of Rabbi Chia's statement. They understood when Rabbi Chia said, Gazlan shal Rabbim, Lav Shmei Gazlan, he was talking about this scenario. This scenario. The Rabbim who have a machlokas, two people don't know, we don't know who it is. Someone, third person, steals it. He's not called a Gazlan. What does he mean not called a Gazlan? Lav Shmei Gazlan. So to force him with the dayonim to take away that which he's stolen, to take the theft away from him. That is, in that respect, he's not called a Gazlan. In that respect, he's not called a Gazlan. Now, it doesn't mean he's done a great thing, but the rule is you can't take away from him. Now, if you look at the very, very small, tiny Tosfos, the second one, it says Tosfos. Can you see that? Yeah, the different, like literally 2.5 lines. Tosfos has a question. What's Tosfos' question? Tosfos' question is, there's a simple solution for the two parties who are disputing this to get it away from the third one. Basically, yeah. A harsha is basically a way of, it's a deal. Exactly, it's a deal. Yeah. Neither of Noshim want Levi to have it, right? So they'll say like this: even though I think it's mine, you think it's yours, for the sake of removing it from Levi, I will give you, Shimon says to Ruvain, I will give you, Ruvain, permission, right, to take it from Levi, either for yourself or for me.
Yeah, because between them
exactly. So they can say, so Tosfos has a question. How is it possible that we leave it? Yeah, how is it possible that we leave it with Levi? Reuven and Shimon can just do a deal between them. They can appoint one of the two of them to take it away from Levi, either on his own behalf or the other one's behalf. That's called a harshah. So he says, since they're wicked people, and that means a halachic terminology, that's a halachic category, right? Okay. We don't go near them. We don't go near them. We don't get involved. We don't get involved.
So who's wicked?
These two people, Reuven and Shimon.
It's first two.
Someone's lying.
But this is just to defeat the Gazan.
But you agree. But someone's who the third person.
Just defeat someone who we know. That's less. It's the lesser of two evils, isn't it? And they're not as bad as the third.
They're as bad as the third. Yeah, but they are in a very invidious position because at the end of the day, they have set themselves up and they've put themselves in a position where they are fatally compromised. One of them's lying. One of them's lying. Someone's a Russia.
He's just giving him position. Just saying, if I've got a claim, I'm giving it to you to.
Yeah, but what the Rashbam, what Tosin says is that because we have in front of us a liar, okay, yeah, because we have in front of us a liar, or really two liars. Yes. Therefore, we don't get involved. So therefore we don't get involved. Why should we defend these people? Look, Rabbi Chanan says like this. Rashbam says the reason is Tosfos is different to Rashbam. Rashbam says the reason is because maybe they don't have a chelik in it at all. Shema gam chelik. So why should you take it away from number 3? Because maybe they don't own it. So Tosfos asks, hold on a second. What do you mean? Together they have 100% claim. Says is mashma shapirshu the vadahu shel echad mihen. That the implication of Tosfos is, you see, Tosfos distant Rashbam. When the Rashbam says that maybe both of the first two don't have a portion in it, that did you think about this already? One second. I thought until now we thought it's for sure either Reuven or Shimon. The Rashbam says maybe it's neither. So that's the Rashbam. The Rashbam is saying you don't know whose it is. Right. So Rashbam says maybe it's neither, and therefore let Levi keep it. Because maybe it doesn't belong to Reuven Shimon at all. Tosfos learns, no, it definitely belongs to one of them. And that's why Tosfos asks, right to Harsha, come mikoyach, the two of us together. But he says the reason is because the third person can push away. The third person is able to push away each one and say it's neither yours, it belongs to the other guy. And he brings a Gemora in Toras similar to this. But he says, according to this, he says, okay, there's a problem with Tosfos effectively. I don't have my other sefer, but he apparently answers it. However you learn Tosfos, you're in a little bit of a difficult situation. Tosfos seems to understand that. Not like Rashbam says, do you know why you leave it with the third person? Because maybe it belongs to neither of Reuven or Shimon, so just leave it with Levi, because who says it belongs to Reuven or Shimon? Tosfos clearly implies that it belongs definitely to either Reuven or Shimon, because his whole question is, let them join forces, and then it's 100% claim. But then his answer is a bit difficult, because what does he say? Since they're Rishayim, we don't get involved with them, but they're not. They're not Rishon. One of them is a Rishon, one of them isn't.
Can it be mistaken? Can it be somebody making a mistake in thinking they have claimed something? He heard something which he thought his ancestors had a claim, but he's just wrong without being a Russian.
I don't think we're really contemplating that.
You assume one has to be a lie.
Yeah, I think so. Because I'll tell you why. Because you can't claim ownership unless you're sure. By definition, you can't claim you own a ship. You have a yacht and you say like, it's mine. Why? Because I think maybe my ancestors left it to me. You guys aren't good enough. He's making a definite claim. He's saying it's definitely mine. So one of them's lying. Either way, according to the way Tosfos understands it, Tosfos is saying that we have now a difference between Rashbam and Tosfos. Rashbam says you leave it with Levi because maybe it doesn't belong to either of the other two. So who says why are they stronger than him? We don't know if it belongs to them. So leave it with the third guy, right? Tosfos says no. It definitely belongs to one of them, but they're Rishoyim because one of them's lying, which is a little bit difficult because when one of them's lying, not the other one. But the point is that's why you don't listen to their claims and you leave it with Levi. Okay, that's how, right? That is the approach of Nahar Doi. Rav Ashi Omar, you with me? Rav Ashi says, yeah. Rav Ashi says, that like this. Rav Ashi Omar Olam Shmei Gazlan. Rav Ashi says no. He is called a Gazlan. He is called a Gazlan. How can he not be a Gazlan, says Rav Ashi? He doesn't claim it's his. And therefore, Rav Ashi disputes the whole thing with Naradot. He says, no, you take it away from Levi. Levi's got no claim. Levi doesn't say it belongs to my ancestors. Levi just grabbed it because he's an opportunist. He's an opportunist. And he saw that there was this dispute over the yacht or the land. And he says, well, while they're fighting, I'm going to take it. How can you let him keep it? So Rav Ashi says he's definitely a Gazlan. Or my lo shmei Gazlan. And what does it mean that he's not called a Gazlan? Shlo nitan lehishovan. He has no way of doing tshuva. That's what it means. It's the opposite. He's called a Gazlan. Yeah. And he says, you know what Rabbi Chia meant when he said, Gazlan shel Rabbim lav shmei Gazlan, that if you steal from the public, you're not a Gazlan, it means you're worse than a Gazlan. Because you can't do tshuva. How are you going to do Ve'eshav Esagazela? How are you going to return it? You got no to return it. Okay?
Oh, I see.
It's not a strict, it's not being lenient, it's being strict. You're not able to do tshuva, you're stuck now because you can't return it. Okay? It's the exact opposite of Nahar Doi. Nahar Doi say Levi takes it, let him keep it. Let him keep it because who says maybe it doesn't belong to other guys or whatever, or they're Rishoyim. Rashi says the opposite. No, if Levi takes it, he's worse than a Gazlan. He can't even do tshuva. He's stuck forever.
Couldn't you just give it back to Baston and say, look, now I was lying?
No, Baston don't want it. Baston don't want it.
No, they don't want it.
And it's worse than that. See the Rashbam. It's worse than that because it's similar to what we started off with the ship. Once you've got it, you got to do something with it.
Okay.
Do you remember we had the case of the ship where we said Baston have a problem? If there's a doubt who owns the yacht and they put it in the marina, the marina of Baston, we've got a problem now. Once you've taken it, we've got responsibility for it. So Levi's decided to grab it, and it's not good enough for him to say, "I made a mistake. That's really bad. I've realized now I'm doing tshuva." Okay, go on, do tshuva. How are you going to do tshuva? Where are you going to give it back to the way it was? Can't do that. You've got to give it back to the right owner. And this is why, as Rashbam is going to spell out, why someone who steals from the public is such a bad thing in another context as well, right?
Is when I steal something from you, so therefore
Yeah.
the ownership is known to be yours. So how do I restore what I've done wrong? I return it to you. Here, in the first instance, we don't know who it belongs to anyway.
Yes.
So why should he be any worse off once he's taken it now than he was beforehand? We still don't know who he can return it to.
Yeah. So you're saying why can't he just put it back where it was? So that's what the Rashbam is going to deal with. That's the problem. Yeah, that's exactly the problem. We're going to understand. Let's see the Rashbam and see if the question is still arises. So the Rashbam is Rav Ashi Omar. Yeah. La'olam Gazlan shel Rabbi Shmei Gazlan. Hoyel v'lo toin midi. He didn't make any claim, and therefore he's definitely a Gazlan. He hasn't got a claim. He didn't say it's my ancestors. We take it out away from him. And we place it in front of the first two, sheyesh lahem tainus ovos, who at least have an ancestral claim of their ancestors. Their claim was each claim was their ancestors, right? Lo shmei Gazlan. And what does it mean? Lo shmei Gazlan. What does it mean that to come Rabbi Chia? Rabbi Chia said he's not called a Gazlan. Yeah, you with me? This is the longer Rashbam. Lo lahakel Allah. It wasn't to be lenient with him. Lo lahakel Allah. He doesn't need to be lenient with him. Lopotro milashalim, to exempt him from paying, rather to be stringent. Veloma to say you're not able to return it, which meaning lo miskaper bahashovam. He can't get an atonement through returning it. De eino yodea lemi yoshim. because he doesn't know who to return it to, right? Right? He doesn't know who to return it to. Because, and this comes now onto Avromi's point, since it's in his hand, he has to return it to the owners. It's not good enough just to release it from his possession and to make it hefka to the first two, to the original two, the Cholman Alim Gvar, and just to say whoever is stronger wins, whoever is stronger than both of them wins, as we said above. I can't do that. Right? Because sorry, as we paskened earlier, we paskened earlier with Bastin. If Bastin take hold of it and they're looking after the item, we don't remove it. We can't release it. Once we're holding it, we can't release it. Kol shekein zeh. How much more so this guy, Toras gezel boliyota. If it came to him through who it came to through theft, and he has to give it back. He has to release it. And he doesn't know who to return it to. So Rashbam makes a straightforward kavachom. When Bastin tried their best to solve the case with the ship, and they took hold of it, what was the concern? You remember the concern, the way the Rashbam learned the sugya, the way the Gemora said, Rav Yehuda said, Lo tafsinon. Why? Why? When with the request with the ship, there was a request. One of them said, just look after it, I'll take hold of it, because I'm going to find lots of proofs, I don't have them yet, and I'm going to come back and then hold it. And Rav Yehuda says, no, because once we've got it, we're never going to be able to release it. Because that was the halacha, paskin like Rav Papa, lo mafkinon, we can't release it. Not Rav Papa, Rav Yehuda, right? Rav Yehuda was once you've really got holding it, you can't release it. Even though, why did Bastin take hold of it? For the best possible motives and reasons and everything else. They took hold of it because they were trying to wait and see, maybe this is a way of resolving the dispute. Let's hold it, let's look after it until he brings his proofs. And yet, once you're holding it, Bastin were holding it, they had responsibility to deal with it. They can't just release it back into the machlokas. Kol shekein, says the Rashbam, how much more so? This guy who has a chiyuv, he's got an obligation to return it. Once it's in his hand through gezela, the Torah says, "V'heishav es hagezela," you've got an obligation to return it to the right place. You with me? That's the kol v'chol. Based in had no obligation to take hold. Well, they have no obligation. They certainly have no obligation to return it, right? They don't have a chiyuv to return it to the right person. And yet we say, once it's in your hand, you've got to deal with it. You've got to take achrayas. Kal v'chomer, a guy who takes something through gezela, who has a much bigger achrayas to put it back in the right place, because that is what a gazlan needs to do. It's not just your standard level of achrayas, it's super achrayas, super responsibility you have. The Torah gives you a major degree, a chiyuv, to return it to the right person. So how much more so he can't just put it back in the same position it was before? Avromi, does that answer your question? Do you understand? We can't allow him. You can't just say, oh, it's okay, I've gone from 0 to 1, I'll go back to 0. You can't do that. The Torah says you've got a chiyuv to deal with it now. And the kavachom is based in who didn't have a chiyuv to deal with it. Even they, we say, have to deal with it once they're looking after it, right? And therefore, that's why he can't do tshuva unless he returns. V'achinami, says Rashbam, Amrinon ba'merches asfina. We say the same thing on merches asfina, very, very famous Gemora. Omer Rabbi Levi says, Kosha oin shon shel midos, me oin shon shel aroyos. The punishment for false weights and measures is harsher than the punishment for forbidden relationships. Why? And Mefarish Hossam, the Gemara explains, Hossam efshe b'tshuva. Even a person, le'aleinu, who performs horrific crimes in terms of forbidden relationships, aroyas, he can use to tshuva. There's always a pathway back. There's tshuva. If a person has dodgy weights and measures, he puts chewing gum underneath the scales in a shop. You know the classic case of weight, right? You know what I'm talking about. The Torah says, good trick. Neither do I. But you know what it means to have faulty weights and measures, right? This is the whole thing. The Torah says, yeah? Ephah v'ephah, hin sedek yelecha, right? End of Parashas Kiseitze. You know, yeah, it's got to have a. You got to do things properly, and you can't. Yeah, and here it's not possible b'tshuva. To hamoiche b'midah, because someone who sells to other people, the bachat's one word. A person who sells with a dodgy, a falsified measure. The measure is 1 kilo, but actually it's 90 gram. How many is 100? Yeah, 90 gram, right? It's 90 gram. Why? Because he's fiddled with it. It's dodgy. That means every person he sold to hundreds of people. He doesn't know who he sold to, right? He has no idea who to return to. It's a practical problem. Practical problem, right? And according to Rav Ashi, Ari Nami Rabbi Chia, Rav Ashi says that that's what Rabbi Chia is talking about. According to Rav Ashi, that's what Rabbi Chia is talking about. When Rabbi Chia says Gazlan shel Rabim lav shmei Gazlan, someone who steals from the public is not considered to be a Gazlan. It's not that he does not consider to be a Gazlan. He's not a Gazlan in the sense that he's not entitled to what a Gazlan is entitled to, which is to return. Gazlan at least can return. And according to Rav Ashi, that's what Rabbi Chia is talking about. So according to Rav Ashi, Rabbi Chia is also talking about he's talking about someone who sells with a faulty measure that is not straight for the public. This is how he says it seems to me that we need to explain this Gemora. In other words, I think what he's saying is, according to Rav Ashi, the fundamental understanding of Rabbi Chia's statement is the same as someone selling with dodgy weights. That if you're in a position where you committed a crime where you cannot do tshuva for, because you cannot do tshuva, right? You can daven as much as you want, but it's not going to help you unless you do the heshtiv esagazela. You're stuck, and that's why, in that sense, it's worse than the punishment of arayos, because unless you return the stolen item, you haven't done tshuva.
Right, I don't think I don't think there's immorality. Sexual immorality is not regarded as a victim and a messiah, as each person has, but unless it's a child.
No, there would be. Or maybe not. It could be. No, if it's consensual.
Whereas with the Geneva, it's not, so you have to go back.
Again, arise is obviously forbidden whether it's consensual or not.
But there's no one to ask them.
I mean, again, that component. Yeah, no, that component. Okay, we're not, when we talk about arise generally, right? And Toras says you must do shnehem. We're talking about when they're both culpable.
Yes.
We're not talking about a case of rape.
Exactly.
We're talking about they're both culpable. So there's no the tshuva is not asking forgiveness. They were both equally culpable, right? But even in a case of, in a case of, there are cases of aroyas, of course, where if there were Adim and Ashraf, be Misa Spaced, so therefore you can't do tshuva because it's Misa Spaced. But the point he's making is that Rabbi Levi is making the point that even the most horrific crimes, right, and terrible sins, you can do tshuva for. But if the Avera involves Gezel or Rabim, stealing from the public, right, the public purse, for example, you can't do tshuva because how can you ever give it back? You don't know who to give it back to. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that's how Rav Ashi understands it, and that is the end of the that is actually the end of the sugya. This is since the beginning of the parak. I think this is the first time we now go back to the actual Mishnah, first Mishnah. This is one long sugya. This is really the completion of that whole first sugya of Cheskes Abatim, all the different case studies. And now we go back to explain the Mishnah. Let's just make a little bit of a brief start on it. Cheskos and Shalosh Shonim Miyom Miyom. We said in the Mishnah, the Chazaka is 3 years from one day to another day. That means to say it has to be 3 complete years. Remember that? Yeah, that's the Mishnah, right? Says the Gemora like this. Omer Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Abba says, if this individual, that means to say, the person himself who is claiming that that it is that you saying basically I'm saying you stole it from me, and you're saying I've got 3 years chazaka, right? And I don't have a shtar because people don't keep their shtar longer than 3 years. You remember, right? Therefore, right? That's chazaka, 3 years, yeah. But if there are Adim, and normally it needs 3 years. But if there are Adim, that the person who's claiming it's his, who says that you stole it from me, and this was always my ancestors' property. If there are Adim, that he lifted up a basket of fruit, right, and gave it to the person who's claiming ownership during the time, it's a chazaka immediately, because you would never have done that unless he genuinely owned it, right? Okay. Says the Rashbam, first wide, where it just begins to get wide. If he lifts up a basket of fruit, it's chazaka immediately. Says the Rashbam, if there are witnesses, should be a ma'ara, that the ma'ara, that means the one who's complaining and saying, this is not your land, you're squatting in my land, but it's my land, belongs to me. If there are Aiden that he lifted up, he lifted up a basket of fruit from this land on the shoulders of the machazik, the one who's squatting, who is claiming and arguing that he bought it, as we're saying, since he supported him and helped him to carry the fruit to his house, he can no longer claim that he can't say, I didn't sell it to him. Because if he hadn't sold it to him, right, the last thing he would do would be to help the guy carry the fruit home. He's not going to help him with his shopping bags in the car of the fruit, is he? That's what we're saying, right? I'm saying, if you help him load up the car, I'm claiming that I'm squatting in the land. Reuven is squatting in Shimon is squatting in Reuven's land, right? And Reuven says, you stole my land. And Shimon says, no, what do you mean? It's mine. I own it, right? I own it. And he hasn't yet been there for 3 years, but he's claiming ownership. And Reuven says, no, I'm the owner. You stole it from me. And then we see Adim witness Reuven helping Shimon load his shopping bags in the car. Shopping bags full of fruit, fresh fruit that he's picked from the land. What does that tell you? Yeah. He tells you that he's obviously lying. That's a knockout proof that I own the land. Okay? Shouldn't have helped him load up the fruit. He should have objected. From the fact that he supported him, Hifsid, he's lost out. It's like he's agreed and admitted that he sold it to him. Rabbi Chananel Pirish, and Rabbi Chananel explains a different pshat. He says, if there are witnesses that the buyer gave to the owner of the land a basket of fruit as a door and as a present, to take it to his house, Nispara, it's clear that the buyer really did. It was his own fruit. And it was his own property that he was giving to the seller. So the Rabbeinu Chananel says the other way around, right? Yeah, the other way around. In other words, it's not about the fact that he helped you, that proves that it's his because he helped you load up the fruit. No, it's the fact that you sold it, that he accepted something from you. The seller, the person who's claiming to be the owner of the land, right, accepted some fruit from the person who's claiming to have bought it. But he says, Rashbam says, he doesn't like this. He doesn't like this explanation of Rabbeinu Chananel. He likes his own explanation. Anyway, that's Rabbi Abba, and we'll leave it there. Mitzvah Shem will continue next time.
Why can't he be an artist?
Who?
The
Yeah, that's what we're going to discuss next. On the ball.
Good, thank you.
The potential of claiming. I mean, he can claim. Okay, goes off.